All right, welcome to episode 5 of the Scarves and Stands podcast with your host, Josh Ricker, and our guest today, Sebastian Pettit, a.k.a. Bass. I met Bass at my time in college at the University of Southern Maine, and our first meeting, I think, was through a mutual friend, Liverpool-Chelsea game. This is the one where Henderson banged one in from about 35 yards, and I bring it up every time me and Bass are together. But Bass is a major Chelsea supporter, big blue, and he's going to join us today. We're going to do a little bit of a twist on today's episode. We're going to do our first inaugural draft, 1v1. We're going to do 5 rounds of the best soccer goal celebrations of all time. Should be a good time. I think it's going to be a little bit of entertaining content for all you listeners out there. Bass also does a lot of commentary for sports at University of Southern Maine, so he's an all-around sports fanatic. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, Bass?
So for the last 4.5 years, I've been doing play-by-play at the University of Southern Maine for multiple, up to about a dozen different sports now. Been about 4.5 years in. The first interest for me was soccer. It was the first sport I got to do. Really enjoyed it. And it kind of expanded. I got to do other things. I wanted to do like basketball, which is another thing I really enjoy. I've done hockey. I've done track and field. I've done field hockey, lacrosse, so really whatever, has been opened up to me, I've kind of taken a hold of, but it all really started with my love for sports, which primarily growing up with soccer.
Yeah, we love to see that, and we love to see the scarves in the background too.
Yep.
Obviously, this is the first time mine have really been on display, at least a small portion. So you got a Werder Bremen one back there.
Yep.
Now,
so
you actually went to Germany in high school,
I stayed
right?
in Germany for a little while when I was a junior in high school in Bremen, and part of the experience as somebody that had never been to Europe is looking around and adapting, and I loved the sport already. I was already been a huge Chelsea fan since I was probably 8 or 9 years old, 2004, 2005. And at that point in the States, there's not that much option to watch soccer on TV. You kind of get what is put on ESPN unless your family pays for the crazy cable expansion, but you couldn't even get the Bundesliga there. So it was a real eye-opening experience, going to Germany. So I've got that. I've got Dortmund because at the time, at that age, FIFA is one of the biggest ways to expand the game in the United States, because
definitely
every kid likes the sports games. They're going to learn a lot. And I was 10, 11 years old playing FIFA, and Dortmund were a team that stood out to me when they had super young, exciting German players before Bayern came and took them all.
Yeah, and that was Klopp's boys, right?
Yeah.
And not to cut you off, but you
not at
had
all.
a little KBD action at Bremen too, right?
Yep. So Kevin De Bruyne was on loan from Chelsea at Werder Bremen, and that was a big thing for me. I was so excited,
Crazy.
Oh my God, I'm going to get over and see this young player. No idea what's really going to be going down the next few years for him. So it was really a cool opportunity. There's a hilarious picture with me as a junior in high school. I'm there literally in shock, taking a photo with Kevin De Bruyne, who's not even really that much older than me. I'm 25 in May. He's 5 years older than me. Dude was still a kid at that point in his life.
And you got a PSG one back there too.
Yeah. When same time I was in Germany, I had friends staying in France, part of the exchange program, and deal was I'd buy an extra scarf, and you get an extra scarf, and that way we both go home with something from each place.
That's awesome. So this is the first video we're doing going on the Scarves and Sands YouTube, and I just want to point out a couple of the new ones that we got. We got an Inner City Firm West Ham one. We're going to do that one with another guest in a couple weeks, West Ham fan from the Netherlands. So that's going to be an exciting episode. And we got a nice Nike Dortmund one from the 90s. It might be fake, but it's a sick scarf.
Yeah.
And then
that does look like the 90s Nike logo for what it's worth.
It does. It feels like shit. So that's the only thing. That's the only thing I'm holding back on. We got a nice Portland, Maine one too. Yep. Benfica one on the end. So we got some new scarves coming in. Just ordered a Forward Madison one the other day. So that's my first USL scarf. Excited to get on the MLS and USL thing a little bit more.
Right.
Haven't been to Minneapolis in my 6 months out in Rochester.
Yeah.
So I need to make a trip to Allianz Field and do the Minnesota United. We're repping them today as well.
That's
But
huge. And that's the other thing. USL coming to Portland, Maine, and they'll have plenty of scarves for that. I'm anticipating them calling themselves Forest City Football Club.
That's what I saw.
FCFC is that's so
great
American.
Branding.
It's so overblown that it's become American, and that's.
And Portland's the best place for soccer. You think about the diversity of Portland and just the culture of the city, and how many sports teams already succeed in it.
Yep.
It's going to be great. Obviously USM has a nice soccer program, a lot of good soccer programs in the area. I think soccer is really picking up interest, just kids, teenagers all over. I remember towards the end of my stint at USM, you see a lot of kids just walking around in soccer jerseys, just random kids. So it's nice to see the interest growing in the state, and Premier League's definitely picking up, man.
Right, absolutely. And it's formed the growth of soccer bars. Before, Portland was had a great bar scene, but now it's got with the diversity of the city, it's got the Portland Zoo, which is an incredible half beer garden, half everyone comes to watch.
Is that by Kennedy Park, right?
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Where there's some great things going on over there too, with the growth of their football program.
Yeah, shout out them. Check their Instagram page out. I think it's just
KPFC.
Kennedy Park FC.
Yeah, incredible stuff from them. That's growing the game faster than anything in the state else going on in the state right now. What they're doing.
No, we love to see that stuff, and busy Premier League weekend too. We got Man United dropping points again at Arsenal just 30 minutes ago.
That game was 93 and a half minutes of comedy, and the funniest part was, in my opinion, the 35 seconds they showed in stoppage time of Cavani and David Luiz standing there just talking and laughing.
Yeah, no, that was hilarious.
The rest of their teams are flopping around like fish and just getting murdered by each other. But
shout out man like Troops. I listened to his commentary while I watched the game. Need to get Troops on an episode ASAP. But it was an entertaining game. Both teams had their chances, and definitely big points drop for Man United because Liverpool can bring the deficit to 1 point tomorrow if they beat West Ham. Not going to be an easy game by any means, but
not at all.
Who does Chelsea have tomorrow?
Oh God, Burnley maybe?
Burnley, I think so. Yeah, so that's difficult game in its own.
Whatever happens, man.
Yep.
It's a brand new time at the club, and you could see immediately, with the game at Wolves, I never felt like we were going to concede once in that game, but the style of play with the snap of a finger has completely changed.
How do you feel about Thomas Tuchel? What's your early call on him?
My early call is that I guess you can't really include the hiring of a new manager with your feelings about removing the old manager. But at that same time, there's, murmurs at the club about, things going on behind the scenes that helped with, someone going out and someone new coming in. So you're going to have, as a fan and somebody that cares about what happens with the program and the club in the future, you're going to have questions. And, the two things I see about Tuchel is he's very methodic, which I think is something the players need, because as much as I love Frank, I didn't believe that there was a method to the madness level. I just felt it was he's also learning as a manager. And the unfortunate thing about Chelsea Football Club is that managers will not get time for that sort of thing because the pressure is on them. They are a team that should compete every year, and I didn't believe going into this year that we'd win the league. It's kind of foolish to assume that you could just buy this, and this, throw them in with what's going on now, have players that have to sit the bench no matter what because you can only start 11 people, and they just say, okay, yeah, we'll take on Liverpool, we'll take on both Manchester clubs, we'll take on even Spurs, who even in the season where they finished second to Leicester, they look way better as a club and as a side, in my opinion, now under Jose. But I think Tuchel can get things done. I think he showed that he has a definite plan. But we play 8 games in the next 28 days, and
you can't be dropping that many points.
You can't be dropping that many points. It's Champions League. At what point with all of these fixtures are we going to see a starting 11 that is actually Tuchel's vision when he's hired, as opposed to, okay, like these guys need to rest. Like
a club like Chelsea too, you almost need a manager like Tuchel, and that's not a diss at Frank, but Frank has only coached at Derby. He's just off his playing career, and respect to other managers in the Premier League, and he doesn't have the experience of managing players with huge egos. And to be fair, Chelsea doesn't have a lot of them right now, but they have a lot of players that are going to turn into that when they start scoring goals. Timo Werner, Kai Havertz. I mean, these guys are proper players, and they're going to need some man management. A guy that's – I don't know if Frank was too much of their friend a little bit at the beginning, but I think Tuchel's going to be a little bit of a hardo as a coach, and I think it's something that
he's going to have him holding tennis balls. He's going to have them holding tennis balls so they don't grab shirts. Like that's, that's the kind of manager he is. And like, that's what you really have to enjoy, like about a new manager. Like when it happens, is like, because at the end of the day, it's something I have no control over. So I have to look at it from a positive perspective and say, okay, what can Tuchel do? Like what does he do that improves our players? What does he do that improves our club? Instead of looking at him as a guy that, took a job at PSG that is glamorous but almost to a fault, and now you are and then you get fired because for some reason the expectation at PSG is to win the Champions League, but like they don't put together a side that wins the Champions League, unfortunately. I don't know how, why, or what when you have that much money.
Well, they don't have the competition during the regular season,
and that's the thing is like you play all these teams and like there's I'd say there's 7 or 8 very, very respectable teams in the French league, and then there's a drop off as you hit mid-table, and when you're playing 24 games a season in the league, and then in the cup even more against teams that like aren't up to snuff with the other big 4.
It's championship level talent when you get past the top tier of France,
and that's the thing. And then you go to Champions League, and over half half the games in the year are to sides that like aren't up to snuff with the top 8 or 10 in France. You spend half a season playing those teams. Like, even, you can see it when, sides struggle against West Brom to do anything. Like you do that on Sunday and then you go to play on Tuesday or Wednesday in the Champions League. You're not having a great time. Like, then that's, that's my case for England and for Spain too. Cause I think La Liga is way better than people give credit for. I think England and Spain are the 2 best, but circling back, like Tuchel has kind of done laps around the big 4 countries now. So he's seen, now at Chelsea, he's kind of seen what ball is like at each of these countries. And now that he's in the Premier League, it'll be interesting to see how his style of play fits the Premier League. But, the amount of completed passes Chelsea had, and like, to the point where for some reason you've got social media admins bragging about stringing together 25 passes because you haven't seen it.
Ridiculous tweet. Bad tweet by the admin.
Bad tweet. But to be fair, like I've never seen my team play like that, and I've been watching like every Premier League game since like 2010.
Yeah, no, fair. Speaking of admin tweets, if I wake up tomorrow or Monday and see a welcome Mustafi post on Liverpool's social media, I'm going to self-implode. I'm making that known on this podcast. Whenever this comes out, probably early next week, if Mustafi is a Liverpool player, I might have to take a couple days off.
It will be almost as romantic as the day that Willian signed for Arsenal.
We just got rid of Dejan Lovren, and Dejan Lovren's just off smiling because now we have to sign Mustafi, who is a far worse player.
Not only sign Mustafi, but let me tell you, Mustafi will be playing every game. Almost.
Drink to that.
I'll drink to that. I don't have Starbucks, but I'll drink to that, brother.
It's tough, and he will be playing every game because Liverpool's only options right now, Fabinho has a knock. Matip looks to be out with ankle ligament injuries.
Yeah, that does not sound like something.
Then you have Reece Williams, who's got exposed by an 18-year-old Louis Barry, and got exposed against Manchester United.
Shout out to Louis Barry. He did get the Instagram follow from me the other day. After
really?
That. Yes, he did.
Wow. That's impeccable.
He just looked so young and happy. I was like, oh man, go on there. He's got like 10K followers. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, the kid's a lad. He played at Barcelona.
Like what can you say? Like you get back to Aston Villa and everyone, like all the other youth players are like, shit, man. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Reese Williams has gotten exposed lately. Nat Phillips hasn't really got exposed, but he's kind of slow. He's just a big body in there, and I don't know if you start him every game. And then you have to put Henderson or James Milner at center back, which is obviously not ideal, and it takes away from the midfield for Liverpool. So the ones that they're looking at right now are Sven Botman from Lille, and
I've seen him.
I just saw the other one. Issa Diop from West Ham was the other one that Liverpool are talking to for 40 million.
40 million is one thing, but like, I don't like, he's one of those players that like across the league, like each of these clubs have like one or two players that you look at and say, okay, if my side, like, I mean, Chelsea aren't really in the thick when it comes to injuries and like need players. Like, we're at the point where like I see the lineup and I'm like, man, I wish this guy could play. I wish this, and he'd do it every week. But like for clubs, like if I was a Liverpool fan, like there's one or two players in each of these teams, like I look at and I say, like maybe, that why not? Like, and from a neutral and negative point of view, like, there's plenty of players out there that have like the quality of the youngsters you have now, and you could just add to, because like they show up, like Minamino shows up and he does things like so getting guys, getting a Matty Cash from Aston Villa, or getting I mean, maybe not outside backs right now, but like then Robertson could get in at center back if he had to, and they just tell him to stay back, because center back's the issue. Like, what do you like?
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
But I mean, if I needed a center back, I'd look right at Diop. I wouldn't be opposed to Ben Mee.
Ben Mee's played well, and when we played them last week, he played superb. And
that's the thing, is like those Burnley players, like that's what they know. Like that's like, even the strikers are back and winning the ball, and it's like, that's why those guys get bought up. Like that's why the whole Charlie Austin experiment happened. Like because he played on clubs where he had to get back. If you don't get back, we're getting relegated. So you have to get back. And so all those players get trained in winning the ball, and then you have strikers that win the ball in the attacking third. Like big clubs don't have that, because they sign the players that are just score goals.
And I would rather get a guy that's going to be part of the long-term. Klopp's obviously a big man management guy, and I don't see him doing a 6-month loan deal. The Eder Militao thing from Real Madrid was talked about, because Real Madrid are putting him out on loan, hoping to get him out by the window end. But I just don't see Jurgen Klopp doing that. I think he wants a long-term piece if he's going to spend money. And I don't see him being dumb enough to get Mustafi. I think it's going to be a Diop or a Botman or someone from one of the lower English teams that can just come in and do a half-decent job and then be a backup guy next year, because Klopp doesn't want to deal with that after 6 months, having to worry about re-signing or having him there as part of the long-term picture if he's not going to play at least in the cup matches. So,
right. And that's one of the good things about Klopp is that Liverpool don't have 45 players out on loan like Chelsea do.
No,
and like
fair.
There's something to be said for that, because the flip side of that is, let's say for some reason we did have a crazy injury crisis and we couldn't start someone, just take someone out. Like, you look at your loan sheet, like my God, like, okay, go get one person. Oh no, we're only loaning out 44 players now. So like that, like that's the one thing that, like, when I look at our loan academy, I'm like, wow, like this is like, because I separate it. I consider the loan players like even separate from like the U23s and the reserves. Like,
I mean, your loan academy is ridiculous.
Like it's a whole other like system. That's why I call it, like, it's all one academy, obviously, but like it's literally the loan academy. Like, I follow accounts that are dedicated to what Chelsea players do when they're out on loan.
I mean, you look at the Chelsea loaners just in like the past decade. I mean, I can name quite a few from like Liverpool that left Chelsea because like there was just no way up the system. Rhian Brewster and Dom Solanke are two of them. I mean, Solanke won the Golden Boot at like the U19 World Cup, and Rhian Brewster hasn't scored for Sheffield yet, but he's definitely like a promising player, and both were in the Chelsea academy.
It's crazy. So like Mohamed Salah's like most memorable Chelsea performance was being rotated in for a huge game against Arsenal because he couldn't get into the squad, and then he had a great game. And that was the game they won 6-0. The famous the handball that he gave to the wrong person. I think he meant to give it to Ox or Walcott and gave it to the wrong. Yeah.
Salah played in the Gerrard slip game too.
Yes, he did.
Crazy
And
fact.
yeah, but that's the thing is like he couldn't get De Bruyne couldn't get in, and like that's the thing when you keep changing the manager every year and a half, you keep
Hmm.
getting different opinions on players, and like maybe you know I would say maybe at 18 years old, Mourinho was right about De Bruyne, but he certainly wasn't at 20 when he
Yeah,
loaned him out
no.
again. So you have like the thing when you change managers every couple of years,
Hmm.
their faith in you, like the faith in youth players rotates too. So now you just have this, you come in and like maybe you're a player that like was told by a manager this is your last loan spell, like this
Hmm.
is it, come back and it's time, like we'll have a spot, and then they fire the manager and then the new guy comes in and this guy's
Yeah,
like,
that's tough. And like I compare it, obviously, back to Liverpool with Klopp giving opportunities to young guys. Liverpool has young guys; they're far and few in between. But when they do come into the side, Jurgen gives them a proper chance. Trent struggled. Not many people remember how much Trent struggled when he first got in the Liverpool side. Martial tore him to bits when they played Manchester United.
yeah,
And
I
you
do
got
I
to give
do
these guys a run in with the team. And I think Chelsea has that problem a little bit where they don't give guys big enough chances. But obviously, you have an academy deep enough to you guys
right.
are going to be good, and you'll never have to worry about being short of players.
Right, and like that's one thing I've come to appreciate, like through all of the unnecessary firings and turmoil and all that, is like our bases are covered. Even the season we were in 15th and finished 10th, I was like like this sucks,
Yeah,
but like at the end of the day, it's the season's over, players come, players go, and we won the league the night right
exactly.
after that.
So we're going to go ahead and get into the goal celebration draft. Just a
That's
quick rundown of the rules. It's 1v1 snake draft. So no, not snake draft. We're just going back and forth. If it was
yeah.
more than two, it'd be a snake. Um, because I'm an honorable gentleman, I will let
Ah,
the visitor pick first. There's 5 categories. We have to have one celebration from every category. They are Premier League, La Liga, women's soccer, a ritual, so something that a guy does every single time. The other ones are just one-off celebrations. And then the last one's miscellaneous. So if you have one that didn't fall in any of the other
yeah, so
categories,
just like a random, yeah,
exactly, you can pick it there. So there's no order you have to pick the categories in. You just have to have one celebration from each
yeah,
category, and we're going to make a social post, be anonymous, and the listeners can pick who had the best draft.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
with that said, Bass, you're on the clock.
Well, I'm gonna get this one out of the way because I think it's an instant win. I'm gonna take the women's soccer one first, and I'm going straight to the top. Brandy Chastain,
You
1999.
bastard.
There is never a moment in that sport, in terms of growth in this country, more important than that moment. So many girls that played on this team now that just won this last World Cup were youngins. Seeing that happen on TV, on ESPN, whatever it was on, first time they probably ever got to watch their country play soccer, and it was that's what they saw, and like that did more than like I'd say a lot of things, up till now. Like it's hard to match that, really, like that energy, that amount of growth, and that moment was well advertised after too, because like they did a good job of making sure it didn't just become a historic women's sports moment that fades away after it disappears out of the limelight. Like they made sure like this is what we can be forever.
One of
Like
the best sports photos of all time.
it has to be like it's one of the first things that like I remember like when I watched soccer, and like I was only 3, so I didn't watch the game live, but like when you go like as a kid and like they show you like all the cool photos of soccer history and like the kids
Mhm.
book, that photo's in there, like her celebrating jersey in hand, screaming, and then like the one with them lifting the World Cup, like
Yeah.
that's the moment, especially for like people our age.
No, exactly. And that's the one I was scared of you taking first because it is a thin category,
Yeah.
just because of it's not really over social media, and women's
Right, and
soccer's
like
only
the
been
thing the
popular
thing
for a
is
certain
like
amount of
now
time.
the NWSL, now the Women's Premier League
Yeah.
has allowed for that, and like it is cool, like when you can't, like when we have weeks off, when we have international breaks. The thing we all hate most is the
Hmm.
international break where they, in like October, where they go and play like 4 friendlies, games that don't mean shit, games that don't mean anything. You get a month off without the club, and now on those weekends they air the women's Premier League, and they show what the Liverpool women's side, what the Chelsea women's side.
It's awesome. I watched it with Dana the other day.
You get to see players. You get there's people that if you watched multiple games in the last Women's World Cup, if you watched England, Brazil, the United States, Sweden, Germany, players in those leagues in the NWSL that you see and she scored a crazy goal in the World Cup, and the accessibility has grown so much that soon it'll just be you won't have to worry about how thin the celebrations are because you'll be able to see them all the time.
Yeah, and I think with my first pick, I'm going to go to the second thinnest category in my opinion, just because I couldn't really find that much on it. And in my memory, I couldn't think of a whole lot. So I'm going to go with La Liga.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to go with Messi taking his jersey off.
That's the one I have written down over here.
It's the one you think of when you think of Messi celebrations. It's it's a meme, obviously.
Right.
It's all over Twitter. It's a GIF. It has to be the most famous La Liga celebration of all time, and definitely Messi's most famous. And in a historically thin category when it comes to celebrations, I think I have to take it with you going women first, where it's a 2-person draft. Now my women's second pick is locked in. So I had to go La Liga when I have options in the other rounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to write these down on my phone.
Absolutely. But I gotta think now because that's the one for me.
It's tough. La Liga's tough.
La Liga is tough. I would say, just as there are as many moments of Messi in action against Real Madrid, one of the first times we ever saw the Sioux was against Barcelona, and I guess the vote's gonna come down, there's gonna be bias when it comes down to who wins this category, but Ronaldo, Marcelo behind him, Ronaldo and Marcelo doing it at the same time together, that's
it's a great one.
The first time Ronaldo did that, everyone was all of his teammates were all right, when do I get to do this with you, shit, and that's the thing is Ronaldo is the other polarizing figure in that league in the last 15 years. And, it's going to be crazy going forward. Obviously now he's already not there, but, in 5 months, and obviously this is just my opinion, but in 5 months, there'll be no Messi or Ronaldo in La Liga.
It's crazy.
Barring some sort of miracle, but if you think Messi's signing for another La Liga team, I don't know what to tell you, but and if he doesn't re-sign with Barcelona, that means it's another country for Messi. So it'll be, interesting to see as a league what they do, how they promote themselves as well. Because now Real Madrid Barcelona takes on a brand new form. How do we make is that rivalry still going to have the same fire it did when you could just say Messi Ronaldo for 10 years?
No,
yeah, definitely. I definitely think Ronaldo's Sioux with Marcelo.
Sioux with Marcelo, so that's your La Liga celebration.
That's my one, yeah.
For semantics.
I'd have to find the specific video of it, but
yeah,
I've definitely seen it. Pretty sure it was in the La Liga game.
We'll find it for social.
But you took the you took that Messi one right out of my
So for me, now La Liga's picked. I still have my women's, but that's locked. So I'm gonna save that till the end. So I have 3 categories in front of that with Premier League, Ritual, and Miscellaneous.
Yeah.
Premier League, I have a few choices.
Yeah.
There's one clear one in the Premier League that I want. The Ritual has a few that I would be fine with. This is tough.
It is.
I think I'm going to go Miscellaneous.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Miscellaneous. I'm going to do the Peter Crouch robot.
Yeah.
He did it against Jamaica, Hungary in friendlies, and then in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And, talk about an icon. It was, he did it at a party. And, the England teammates were just razzing him to do it in a game.
Absolutely,
talk about it's actually Peter Crouch's birthday today, too. So,
oh, my God.
Happy birthday, Peter Crouch.
I hope he's
what an amazing guy.
By the way, out of every player to retire and go on to do some other form of media, like his podcast is
It's incredible.
dude, that's some next level stuff.
He had Prince Harry on it.
Yeah. And the thing about Peter Crouch is he doesn't take himself seriously.
No.
It's beautiful. And like
I have to find his tweet. His tweet today.
Oh my God. There's one every day, I think.
Oh yeah, no, there definitely is. But he tweeted
I forget what
9 hours ago. He said, "Thanks so much, everyone, for my birthday wishes. Now please leave me alone. I'm hungover and old." And top lad, Peter Crouch, iconic celebration, another great celebration gif too. So I'm going with Peter Crouch in my miscellaneous category, and it's on to you for round 3.
So I'll follow up your miscellaneous with mine. Random one that just makes me laugh every time. It's a bit newer, but one of my favorite ones in recent memory, and just as a Chelsea man as well, is Mason Mount, who obviously has made friends over the years, and I don't know exactly what it is that Chunks does as a person.
Oh yeah, the dance, yeah.
And,
the Chunks dance.
But there's a video of them hanging out and like him, like Mason Mount, like doing something and then doing like the piano celebration, and then Chunks asked him to do it in a game if he scored, and then like I think it was a couple of games later, he did it, and it was right, and like the camera could not have been any more perfect position. He just happy as hell, just runs up.
It's a good celebration.
And that you can there's gifs of that, there's videos of that, like him just smiling away because he knows how funny it is. So I think for miscellaneous, I'm gonna go that one.
Okay, I appreciate the pick with Chelsea. You didn't pander to the popular vote.
No,
what you wanted to. It's a good pick.
Can't be doing that.
So now it's my third pick.
So
I have
Premier League
women's
ritual to touch. Neither of us have or not. Right, we both haven't done that. You still have your women's pick, and then we both have Premier League and ritual.
Yeah.
All right.
I think you know what I'm going to go with for the Premier League.
I may haps know.
I am going with the Robbie Fowler cocaine celebration on the end line against Everton.
I mean, to be fair, like what else is there to pick?
Yeah, it's the most iconic. It might be the most iconic celebration ever. And the best part about it wasn't even the celebration. It was Gerard Houllier's explanation after the match of what it was, where he told reporters it was a Cameroonian grass-eating ritual that he learned from one of his teammates. And, I mean, you can't have a celebration that takes the piss more. He was obviously doing it because he got a little stick from Everton fans about him, possibly being a coke addict. And I think he was getting a little bit of bant throughout the match, so...
I'm sure.
I mean, you always get a good...
About both of the things you just said, about Robbie Fowler and about perhaps some banter. But, it is what it is. That was 15 years ago, and it's still funny to this day. Oh, what a goal there.
Who scored?
That? Oh, the top lad. It's Ross Barkley.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, you love to see it. A header.
I had the Southampton money line, too. Hate to see it.
That was well worked. A lot of one touch and great finish. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a hilarious one.
It's a good pick.
For my Premier League pick, I would say, again, not going to pander, going to go straight back to the club. Drogba and Malouda going to the corner flag and Drogba playing it like a guitar.
Oh, that's a good one. I did not think of that.
And Malouda's just behind him dancing. It's exceptional stuff. That era of Chelsea was so much fun. Drogba, Malouda, Anelka, all fun forwards. Like Anelka, big boy in his prime years. Like Drogba gives you 70 minutes of just physical, brutal beating, and then your break is Nick Anelka.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. Bad time to be a center back in the Premier League for sure.
So we both have our miscellaneous and Premier League done. So yeah. I'm just going to go into the ones that we missed or left out. And this is you're going to get it with a 1v1 draft because we're only taking 2 from each category.
Right.
Which is like something obviously we want to expand into is like having more people on because it'd be a little bit funner to hit everything. I mean, we missed the Suarez dive versus Everton when he dove in front of David Moyes. That's a good one. The Balotelli's "Why Always Me,"
Mm-hmm.
and Emmanuel
Well,
Adebayor celebration against Arsenal for Man City when he ran 100 yards and celebrated in front of the Arsenal fans.
10 years later, I still ask myself, why always him? I still do. I still do, and I never will stop.
It's Balotelli's best celebration. It's a good one.
But they also, like, as ignorant as he acted in some situations, one thing I must say is, like, one of the most horribly mismanaged players in the history of the game. Like
misunderstood.
Like there's plenty of them out there. Like there's plenty of players throughout history that were horribly mismanaged, and there's a lot of things he did to himself. But you can't. The dude's with like 2 touches took Germany out of the Euro, at like 22 years old, and didn't celebrate either one of them.
Fair. It's a good point.
Just walked back like it was his job.
Where is he nowadays? I know he was at OGC Nice
I heard
last year.
Something about Brescia in Italy.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Don't know if he's still there or if he's a free agent or not, but I think, he could have one more good lap around him. I don't know how he is in terms of fitness, but, people talk about in every transfer window, like, hey, what's this guy up to? Somebody, whether it's the championship, whether it's, maybe even MLS. Like the way the league leans, like they like older guys that are names, and older guys that are names have proven that they can come in and put in, a year and a half to maybe 3 years of good ball. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of guys that, we grew up with watching in the Premier League, drift over there in later years. Wouldn't be surprised to see David Silva show up there. That's a big one.
So it's my pick again.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna
You're
go
on your
from
fourth.
one controversial, possibly mismanaged free agent striker, and I'm gonna take my ritual, Daniel Sturridge.
Oh, okay, all right. So I got you. I think I got you on this one. That's and that thing is like that's a classic. It's social media, like the big boom of soccer in America, like in that time, like. People saw Sturridge and as much as he struggled at times and got hurt at times, he was a recognizable name in the game.
Yep. And I think he's still well liked at, Chelsea and Liverpool.
Right.
I mean, you see the respect between, all 3 parties when, Sturridge scored that, I think his last goal for Liverpool, that top right corner one a couple years ago, and, he refused to celebrate.
Yep.
So he's a respectable guy, and it's, it's a shame that he doesn't have a job right now. Right. I think he's worthy of, at least an MLS starting position because he is, a top-class striker.
Yeah.
I think we're on to the last round.
Yeah. For my ritual, I'm going to take it back to the 2000s in Portsmouth Football Club.
Oh, wow.
And Lomana Lualua's double backflip celebration.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it was to the point where I don't know what year it was. I think it was 04-05. He did it either against, I think it was Newcastle he did it against, and he hurt himself. And I think it was the last time we ever saw it. But, man, that dude was entertaining before, like skill move guys came, like Balassi, like Adel Taarabt, one of my favorite non-Chelsea players ever, by the way. Like, that dude at QPR, might have kept them up. Him and Charlie Austin kept QPR up one season.
That's crazy.
Watched it happen with my own 2 eyes. And Joey Barton. Never forget.
Yeah.
Never forget. Yep. Hope he's breathing, at least. I don't know what he does.
Yeah, we'll have to
he managed like 3rd or 4th tier for a while, I heard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't think it ended well. I think there were pluses to it, but I don't remember it ending well from what I see. But Lua, that dude would score and go into the deep gymnastics routine, and I respected the hell out of it.
And that's a good value pick with your 5th pick.
Yeah.
So with mine, I have women's soccer left, and there's only one other option I think here. It's the Alex Morgan teacup celebration versus England. Yeah, there's 2 celebrations I think of when I think of women's soccer. There's the old women's movement, and there's the new one. Yeah. Megan Rapinoe obviously had a few, like the hands up in the air thing. She kind of looks like Future in the Too Comfortable single album cover. But the Alex Morgan one's a little iconic.
I didn't know that till you just said that, but yes, you're right.
It's fair. The Alex Morgan one's iconic because it's I love celebrations that take the piss. You see it in my list a lot.
Right.
And England, I mean, England's kind of known as like, the home of soccer. It might not be, but if that's what it's considered as, and to do that in front of the English fans' faces was a little ballsy. And it just showed that, these women aren't going to be, messed with, and that the U.S. are the best. And that's where soccer is. That's the home of women's soccer is the U.S.
Right.
And to put it in England's face like that was pretty cool.
Right. And the other big thing about it is like, people, the common argument is like, oh, it's not as exciting as the men's game. And like, that's the thing is like, pardon me, you have all this banter in the men's game. And, it doesn't not exist. Like, it definitely exists. And like, part of this was Alex Morgan saying, hey, let's get people as fired up and as entertained about it as like we do, on the men's side when they do funny celebrations and they take the piss out of each other. Like, we can do that too, and it can be funny and it can be memorable. And that's one of the things that makes it one of the coolest celebrations, like men's or women's, of these last couple of years. Just because, like, oh, remember when she did that? Oh, I immediately remember. And like
in a World Cup too, everyone remembers the World Cup.
No less in a World Cup elimination game. No less.
It was a semifinal, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, huge game for US, and
for
they're going to dominate for the next few years. They're still loaded, and Alex Morgan's actually in the Women's Premier League playing for Spurs right now. So
I think she just wrapped up to go back.
Did she?
To the States for this season?
Okay.
But even still, like, such a big name to be able to have on TV, like Rose Lavelle at City, who really made a name for herself in the last World Cup, and I think going forward, you'll see her as a mainstay in the team. And
as we get further into this movement, I can't wait until like the Women's Champions League becomes more popular, because they do deserve the coverage, not just once every 4 years for the World Cup.
Right. Well, the other thing you have to take into account about the Women's Champions League is it doesn't include the NWSL, which houses so many players that play in World Cups.
Part of their CBA with playing with the U.S. women's national team is playing in that league, so it's obviously a conflict.
Right, and that's the other thing is now you have to decide, like, do you want to do the same Champions League model as the men's teams? Or do you want, because if you do, then for it to truly be the best, you have to have all these players migrate from one country to the other.
Yeah.
And or one area to the other. So, there's that part. There's the how many teams from each country get in. So if everyone goes to England, then not everybody's going to be playing in the Champions League if there's only 4 clubs. So, like, now, like, you have to get them to go to England and spread out if you really want all the best players to be there, like it almost is with the men's game. Not all the best players, but I'd say if you took the 100 best players in the world, 95 of them at least play in the Champions League.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
Or are on the fringe. Because, like, I'd say, obviously, like, there's, like, Spurs or Arsenal players that are probably in the top 100 in the world, and, like, they're not in it right now. But that's the other thing is, like, how many spots are we going to continue to give small countries when there's, players that like Kane, Son, Aubameyang, Lacazette that are like not playing in the Champions League regularly?
Yeah, and you need those guys playing because they're huge brands and their careers get wasted playing in the Europa League.
Yeah.
And then, people kind of shit on them when they leave the club, saying they're unloyal and whatever, and they're just trying to make a name for themselves. And
they know what the goal is.
Yeah. I mean, the Europa League, it's a nice tournament for the Sevillas, the Valencias, the teams that aren't necessarily European powerhouses. But for the Big Six in the Premier League and, the Big Four in the other league, and that's, I think, the allure of this European Super League that they're talking about is it's guaranteed that you're going to be there. And if you're one of those big clubs in it, you have that, just that security that you're going to be playing in the biggest league every year.
Yeah, the other thing I think about a lot is like up until like the 2000s, they had the third cup below the Europa League, the
Cup Winners' Cup.
Or no, not even. Or that might be been what it was called for a while, but they renamed it the Intertoto Cup, and it was like teams that like the 7th and 8th team in England we got to be in. Like so, like it really went down there, and like I don't think they did it for a lot of years, but like those ones are worth looking into because like those provided just like these ridiculous matches that like you would have only made playing kickoff in FIFA. Like you'd see like West Ham against like Borussia Mönchengladbach. It's like, okay, like what is this like preseason friendly that you're giving me right now? But no, like, it was for a European Cup.
And it is cool, and it's cool when those lower Premier League teams, like when Fulham made it to the Europa League, like made that run. Yep. It's cool to see them do that, but at the same time, I think with the money they spend, even if they stink, those teams should have to be forced. I mean, even when the Lakers stink, they still have to play in the NBA.
Exactly.
Make them play, make them lose. I mean, that's what's going to make teams better, and I think it'll make teams get out of ruts quicker too. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
But it's been a productive episode. We'll put out the socials for the draft and let the audience choose who won. You know, love talking to my man Bass, and I doubt this will be his only time on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to do it. Starting up some media of my own here.
Yeah, shout out your Twitch and all your socials.
Yeah, absolutely. First, my first Twitch stream is going to be tonight. I just finished building my setup for everything. So twitch.tv/Bass to the Future. Good solid play on words with the name there. I'll be sending that link out on my socials. Been promoting it, be promoting it as well. YouTube as well. Hopefully here soon, but you know, I've been playing games my whole life, so excited to be doing it in front of a camera and hopefully build a little bit of a community and a following through, you know, love of gaming, love of sports, and, you know, feel free to come check it out, sit in the chat. Appreciate it.
Love to see it. So we'll see you next week with a new jam-packed episode. I'm not sure who we'll have for a guest, but we'll be talking about the Premier League, what's going on. We'll probably do another scarf breakdown for everyone. So thank you. Subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating, share with your friends, whatnot. That's a wrap.